So hey guys, this is your favorite the fictional vortex. So in this video, we will see, what if Naruto become a Jedi ninja of Star Wars? But before we start, remember to subscribe and like this video. Now let's start. 5-year-old Naruto Uzumaki was exploring the area known as the Forest of Death. Today was his birthday and he was trying to avoid the villagers that always seemed to attack him on this day. Most of the villagers stayed out of the forest, even the ninja avoided it unless it was being used for the Chunin exams. In fact, the only person Naruto knew of who entered the forest willingly was a woman named Anko Mitarashi. Naruto didn't know her personally but thought that she was kinda cool in a creepy badass way from the rumors he had heard. Since Naruto did not know what Anko thought of him, he had entered the forest when she was at a restaurant that he heard she liked. Eventually Naruto came to a small river with a cliff inside the forest. Deciding to take a short break, he walked to the edge of the river and started to get a drink. While doing so, he spotted something on the edge of his vision. Looking towards it properly, Naruto saw that it was a cave carved into the cliff wall. Curious, especially since Naruto did not see it at first, he stood up and walked towards it. As he got closer, he saw that there was a strange orange light coming from deep within. Cautiously, Naruto entered the cave with the intent to find out what it was. It didn't take very long before Naruto came across a large cavern within the cave. In the center was a bonfire with a stranger sitting before it. The stranger was sitting with its face towards Naruto but was staring at the fire. Based on the body type, the stranger was clearly male. However, Naruto knew that this man was not part of the village. The reason why was quite obvious considering the man had sharp, pointed ears and an almost albino complexion. The shoulder-length white hair did not help matters either. When Naruto walked closer, the man looked up and Naruto gasped in shock. The man's eyes were a solid milky white, indicating that he was blind. Running across his eyes from hairline to hairline was a long scar suggesting the source of the blindness. The face itself was covered in wrinkles and a thinly trimmed beard and mustache surrounded his mouth. The beard and mustache was the same shade of white as his long hair. Suddenly the man spoke. "Greetings Naruto Uzumaki. Please have a seat. There is much to discuss and not a lot of time." Naruto sat down and how knew to just wait for the stranger to start the discussion. "My name is Quintua Scancat. I am the last of a long-dead race and soon will join my brethren within the Force. As you can probably tell, I am not from this world. In fact, I come from a planet far away from here in another galaxy. However, my story is not that important. What is important is that you, Naruto Uzumaki, have a great destiny to accomplish. I know why you are hated within the village and can tell you that reason if you desire," said the man now named Quintua. "Yes, please tell me. Why am I hated by my own village?" said Naruto. The man sighed and said in a sad tone, "It has to do with the events of the attack on the village 5 years ago. You see, the nine-tailed fox is a being of pure chakra and therefore cannot be killed. Therefore it was sealed into you in order to stop its rampage. Now listen very carefully, Naruto. The fox may be sealed within you but you are not the fox. The villagers fear what they don't understand and because of that are taking their fear out on you. This is wrong of them and is not your fault. Unfortunately, I do not know why you were chosen to hold the fox, only that you were. However, if you will allow, I will train you to protect yourself and to fulfill your destiny." When Naruto heard the strange man with pointy ears tell him that, he was understandably scared. However, after thinking through what the man said, Naruto came to realize that he was right and that the circumstances of Naruto's birth was not his fault. Thinking back, Naruto asked a question. "You mentioned I have a destiny. What exactly is it?" "All I know is that you are chosen to either lead the elemental nations into a peaceful era or destroy it entirely. The choice of which will be yours to make. However, if you agree, I can train you in all I know so that you will be ready to begin your destiny," replied the man. "Very well, I accept whatever you want to teach me. Due to the fox sealed within me, most of the teachers at the academy refused to teach me anything," replied Naruto. The man smirked and waved his hand in front of Naruto. A second later Naruto fell asleep and the man stood up. As he his form shimmered to reveal a man wearing a black robe with a hood pulled up. If one looked inside the hood they would see an old man with lots of wrinkles and sickly yellow eyes. He then turned to the back of the cave and spoke with a raspy evil voice. "Bring the ship around. We will leave with my prize immediately. Upon our return I want you to train the boy with everything you know. Once you deem him ready, I will take over myself and complete his training. When the time is right I will send him back here with the intent to claim this backwards planet in the name of the Empire." As soon as he finished speaking, a tall man wearing black armor and a helmet walked out of the shadows. On his chest was a square box that held all kinds of lights and buttons. A heavy breathing could be heard coming from the mask-like helmet before a deep voice spoke. "As you wish, master." With that the man exited the cave to carry out his master's wishes. 5 minutes later, a small Imperial ship lifted out of the forest of death and left the planet. Nobody within the village knew of Naruto's forced departure, and when it would become known it would be too late to stop it. Darkness is in store for the elemental nations, and no one will be able to stop it, or will they? Time skip. 7 years later, Naruto Uzumaki stood next to the man who he saw as an older brother. Before them was a funeral pyre with the same man who wore the black armor all those years ago laying upon it. As it turned out, Quintua Scancat was actually the evil Emperor Palpatine, who wanted a younger, more powerful apprentice in order to steal his body for his own. The purpose of that was to extend his life even further than he already had by using the Force. Unfortunately for the Emperor, he had Naruto stationed on the original Death Star at the time Princess Lee was held prisoner. Luke Skywalker managed to find him and rescue him from the clutches of the Empire. Ever since then, Naruto and Luke treated each other as the brother they never had. Luke and Naruto trained together with Yoda and learned everything they could of the Force. Thanks to the training he received from Vader and the Emperor before Luke rescued him, Naruto already knew some of the more powerful Force moves such as Choke and Lightning. However, he promised Master Yoda that he would only use them to defend himself and others if there was no other way. Yoda took him at his word, and so far he has kept it and had not had to resort to those moves since his conversion to the light side. Just recently Vader had converted to the light side as well and helped destroy the evil Emperor. Unfortunately, Vader took too much Force lightning into his suit from the Emperor and died shortly afterwards. Right now, Luke was paying respects to the man who turned out to be his father before the Emperor turned him to the dark side. Luke turned towards Naruto and said, "Now that the Emperor and the Empire is gone, what do you intend to do?" "I'm going back to my home world to try and rejoin my old village to become a ninja. I plan on using my skills with both the Force and my lightsaber to protect my old village from both within and without," replied Naruto. Luke held out his hand and said, "Very well, but make sure you take good care of yourself. I have a feeling this will be the last time we see each other, so good luck out there." Naruto shook Luke towards his personal ship that looked like those used by the Jedi before the rise of the Empire. Before he could climb into the cockpit, however, he was stopped by a shout of his name. Turning around, he saw Han Solo running up to him. "Hey kid, I heard you're going back to your home world. Is this true?" Naruto nodded his head and wondered what this was about. He soon found out when Han reached down to his ankle and unstrapped the Spar blaster he carried. It was an older model that was once used by the Naboo during the Clone Wars. How he got a hold of it nobody knew. Once unstrapped, Han held it out to Naruto and said, "Here, take this with you. It only has a range of 75 meters, but you never know when it will come in handy. It has both a stun and kill setting though, so be careful with it." Naruto took it and saw that the ankle holster could also be strapped to a belt. After seeing this, Naruto attached the holster to the small of his back. He was dressed in a dark red version of the old Jedi uniform with a blood-red robe with hood lowered. His feet were covered in black combat boots and an armored glove covered his right hand to the elbow. There was nothing wrong with his hand or arm on that side. He just thought it was cool. His blonde hair was wavy and reached his shoulders while framing his face. His face was smooth, having lost the whisker-like marks long ago. His eyes, however, held the most change. What once was sapphire blue was now sickly yellow with a red trim. Master Yoda told him that by the time Luke rescued him, he had already gone too dark to change his eyes back to their natural color. He could spend the rest of his life secluded in peaceful meditation with the light side of the Force flowing through him, and he would still die with the eyes of a Sith. Naruto was not concerned, as he thought it made him look intimidating and would help hide his true identity from the villagers of his home world when he returned. Attached to his black belt on either side, was a pair of lightsabers that were designed like the one Obi-Wan Kenobi used in Phantom Menace. The blades, however, were different colors altogether. The one on his right side had a red blade as was the very first one he made before Luke rescued him. It held sentimental value to him, so he kept it. The left side one had a green blade and was made alongside Luke when he built his own lightsaber. After losing the one given to him in a duel with Vader. After attaching the blaster to the small of his back, Naruto thanked Han and got into his ship before setting the coordinates and taking off. It would take 1 month of flying through hyperspace to reach his home world. In the meantime, he entered a meditative state and let the Force flow through him. He was finally returning home in order to become a ninja. Time skip. 1 month later. Naruto's ship lowered into the atmosphere of his home world. Using his computer monitor, he found a large clearing in the middle of a lush green forest. Not wanting to draw attention to himself, Naruto placed his ship into hover mode about 300 feet above the ground. He then opened up the cockpit and jumped to the ground while using the Force to slow his fall and land softly. Once on the ground, he pressed a hidden button on the armor of his glove. A second later, a small screen lifted off the glove and revealed a small full keyboard underneath it. After typing in some kind of command, Naruto closed the screen and raised his hood over his face while turning towards the source of Force signatures that he sensed. As he walked in that direction, his ship above him closed the cockpit and flew back into space to land on the dark side of the planet's moon. Half an hour later, Naruto came upon a large open gate that had a stylized leaf symbol above the entrance. Knowing this to be his old village, Naruto continued on his way and waved his hand over the guards to prevent them from stopping him. With that out of the way, Naruto continued on towards the Hokage Tower. He remembered the third Hokage as being one of the few who liked him despite the fact that he once held the nine-tailed fox within him. 10 minutes after entering the villa, Ge saw Naruto walking through the Hokage's office door after using the Force on the secretary to prevent him from being seen. The moment he was through the door, a dog-masked Anbu had him pinned again. Saint the wall with a kunai against his throat. Give me one good reason why I shouldn't kill you where you stand for just walking in here unannounced, said the Anbu. Before Naruto could say anything, Hokage stood up with his own kunai in hand and said, "Stand down, dog. I would like to question the stranger myself before any rash actions are taken." The Anbu nodded before releasing Naruto and fading back into the shadows of the room. The Hokage then sat back down but kept the kunai on his desk in plain view before speaking. "So, stranger, what brings you here? Especially since I was not informed by the gate guards to any new visitors to my village." Naruto bowed politely before stepping closer to the Hokage's desk and taking all 3 of his weapons off his belt and placing them on the desk. Once he was unarmed, Naruto stepped back to his original spot and spoke. "Those are all the weapons I have on my person. If you want to have me searched to prove this statement, I will of course cooperate." The Hokage nodded, and a second later Naruto was assuming the position against the was while being patted down by the dog-masked Anbu once more. "He's clean. There are no weapons of any kind on his person," said Dog before disappearing into the shadows once more. The Hokage then hid his kunai once more and placed all 3 of the strange-looking weapons in a drawer in his desk. He then waved Naruto to have a seat and said, "Your weapons will be returned to you when you leave the office. Now once more, who are you and what is your purpose here?" At this time Naruto lowered his hood and let his face be seen. The instant he did, the Hokage gasped and ran around the desk before bringing Naruto into a hug. Once released from the hug, Naruto asked, "You remember me? How is it you recognize me? I was there on the night of your birth, Naruto. It would take a lot more than long wavy hair and an eye color change to make me not recognize you. Although I am curious about the loss of whisker marks on your cheeks," said the Hokage. So Naruto told his story from the day he was kidnapped by Palpatine and ending with his return to the planet. The Hokage learned quite a lot from what he was told. Palpatine and Vader took him to another planet in a far galaxy where he underwent experiments to make him stronger and faster. He also underwent vigorous training under both members of the Sith to learn skills that no other person in the village knew. The whole process took a toll on the fox sealed within him until eventually the fox was absorbed fully into Naruto's chakra system. As of now Fox no longer exists and Naruto has a much higher chakra reserve than most ninja in the entire elemental nations. After Naruto's story, the Hokage sat back and smoked his pipe before saying, "I see. Oh, you want to rejoin the village and become a ninja? I will allow it on one condition. You will need to change your last name to something else. The entire village thinks that Naruto Uzumaki is dead. And I believe it would be best to keep it this way. However, I have an idea on your name change." Naruto nodded his head and said, "That is perfectly acceptable. What did you have in mind? Do you know who your parents are?" asked the Hokage before going any farther. At Naruto's nod he continued, "And what is your thoughts on your father? I know he was a great man and a hero to the village. He did not want to place the fox inside me but had no choice, and he also couldn't ask another what he wasn't prepared to do himself," stated Naruto. "Indeed. In that case I suggest you take up your father's last name. From what you told me you are perfectly capable in protecting yourself from any enemies he might have had. As for the villagers themselves, we can say that you have a training trip and have recently returned to the village. I am sure no one will question it," replied the Hokage. At that time a ghostly couple appeared in the office. The first was a tall man with spiky blonde hair and blue eyes. A leaf headband was around his forehead, half hidden by his hair. He was wearing the traditional Jonin outfit with a white trench coat over it. The coat itself had red flames around the bottom edge and the kanji for fourth written across the back. The second was a woman with long red hair and green eyes. She wore a headband around her forehead as well, but it had a swirling vortex as the symbol. She wore the traditional Anbu uniform and had a pair of katana strapped to her back. These were Kushina Uzumaki and Minato Namikaze. The Hokage could tell they were dead since they had a GHT blue tint to them and were see-through. "We think that is an excellent idea. In fact, I taught Naruto both of my techniques, so him knowing them will bring credence to the fact that he is my son. I also propose that instead of a solo training trip, he was training with myself. I will of course allow myself to be seen throughout the village every now and then. Make sure it is known that I am only a ghost though and cannot affect the living world," said Minato. "You can also tell them that I am his mother and that I also taught him some skills. We will change my last name to Namikaze as well as since no one but you and the Sani knew of my marriage to Minato. I will also be around the village every now and again. However, since we are dead it will not be very often, and even when we cannot do more than observe," said Kushina. "Very well. I will have the story passed around the village. Now as to your joining the ninja ranks, a graduation exam will be starting at the academy in 1 hour. I will give you a pass in order to take it with the other kids your age. Where you are placed will depend on how well you do on the exam. Will this work for you?" said the Hokage. Naruto nodded and stood up and said, "Yes, that will be fine. Where will I be staying while in the village?" The Hokage reached into his desk and took out Naruto's weapons before returning them to their owner. He took out a set of keys and passed them to Naruto and said, "Those are the keys to the Namikaze residence. I am sure Minato here can show you the way." Minato nodded and said, "It would be my pleasure. We can only stay in this realm for 2 hours at a time. After that we will disappear for at least a week before we can show ourselves again." After writing a note, the Hokage passed it to Naruto before speaking again. "This is the note to give to the academy instructor in 1 hour. I will have your story spread throughout the village by that time. For now you are dismissed." After placing all his weapons in their normal spots, Naruto took both the keys to his new home and the note from the Hokage before bowing in respect to the Hokage and leaving the office. He only had an hour to check out his new home and get to the academy for the graduation exam after all. An hour later saw Naruto Namikaze, as he was now known, walk towards the room number that held the graduating class of the academy. The house that he now lived in was a decent size and held all the basics that he would need. He left the blood-red robe that he usually wore at the house but left the rest of his outfit as is. Knocking on the door, Naruto waited to be called on to enter. When he did, he gave the note from the Hokage to the instructor and waited while observing the rest of the class. In his opinion, the students were nothing special. After reading the note, the instructor spoke up. "All right class, listen up. We have a new student joining us for the graduation exam. I will allow him to introduce himself." Taking that as his cue, Naruto spoke. "My name is Naruto Namikaze. I am the son of the late 4th Hokage, Minato Namikaze, and his wife Kushina Namikaze. I have been away from the village on a training trip for the past 12 years. My likes are training and meditating, and my dislikes are those who hurt others for no reason and those who are evil. My dreams for the future is to see that the village remains at peace." Naruto then took a seat near the back next to a boy wearing a high-collared coat and sunglasses. The boy nodded to Naruto in greeting and said in a logical monotone voice, "Hello, my name is Shino Aburame. It is nice to meet you." Naruto nodded back and said, "Nice to meet you, Shino. I hope we can become friends." Shino nodded and said, "That will be acceptable. Would you like a tour of the village after the exam? I know of a good place to eat where we can get to know each other." "Sure. I just arrived in the village today and have only seen from the gates to the Hokage Tower and here. Let's meet outside the academy after the exam and hang out," replied Naruto. Shino nodded and turned back to the front to pay attention. "For our new student, my name is Iruka and I will be giving the graduation exam. The exam will be in 4 parts. The first part is a written test and counts for 20% of your final score. The second part will be an accuracy test that will be conducted outside. After that will be a sparring match to determine your overall rank in the class. Finally, we will conduct the Jutsu portion of the test. The Jutsu portion is the most important part and will determine if you graduate or not. You will be asked to perform the 3 basic academy Jutsu. For extra credit you may perform other Jutsu to gain more points towards your final score," said Iruka. With that, the test papers were passed around before Iruka told the students to begin. The written portion took 30 minutes as there weren't that many questions. When the written test was over, Iruka called the class to order and led them outside to begin the next portion. The accuracy portion of the exam was next, and they had to throw kunai and shuriken at a target at a range of 70 meters. Since the entire class seemed to have their own supply of shuriken and kunai, Naruto was forced to improvise. As soon as he was called to take the test, Iruka asked, "Naruto, where are your kunai and shuriken?" "I don't own any. However, I will be taking the exam anyways," was the reply Naruto gave. Before Iruka could ask what Naruto meant, Naruto reached behind him to the small of his back and extracted his Nabu blaster. Pointing it at the target, he quickly pulled the trigger 50 times. A bunch of red blaster bolts shot forth and decimated the target. When the smoke cleared, Iruka saw a small smiley face in the center bull's eye of the target. With a sweat drop, Iruka declared that Naruto passed the exam. As Naruto walked back to his classmates, he examined the blaster. With a frown, he realized that the bolt cartridge was almost empty with only 3 shots left. He then realized he would need to upgrade it if he planned on using it more in the future. Shortly after the accuracy exam, it was time for the sparring matches. After half an hour, it was down to the final match. Naruto himself versus Sasuke Uchiha. Sasuke was a boy with black hair in the shape of a duck's behind and black eyes. He wore a blue short-sleeved shirt with a popped collar and the Uchiha clan symbol on the back. A pair of white arm warmers covered both forearms from wrist to elbow. He wore a pair of beige short TS and the usual ninja sandals with his right leg wrapped in ninja tape. As they stepped into the sparring ring, Sasuke smirked and said, "You should just give up now, loser. I don't care who you are or who your father is. But I am an Uchiha and I am the best in this class." Naruto just stood there with his arms crossed over his chest and didn't respond. Sasuke saw this and frowned before getting into the Uchiha clan style. When Iruka began the match, Sasuke charged at Naruto and threw a left hook at his face. Naruto for his part did not move an inch. Just when it looked like Sasuke was going to hit Naruto, he jumped back and rushed again from another angle with the same result. Even when Sasuke rushed Naruto from behind, Naruto just stood TMPED back just inches before contact. Nobody knew why Sasuke wasn't hitting Naruto, and Sasuke himself was pissed that he couldn't hit the loser. Every time his fist was inches from contact, it was stopped by what felt like a brick wall. It actually streaked. Unlike he hit one, but he refused to show. Naruto himself was smirking on the outside while inwardly thinking, "Don't underestimate the power of the Force. That was the first lesson Vader taught me, and he is correct. With the right application, nobody can land a physical attack on my person. Of course I have to be standing still and conscious for it to work, but that's not really a problem. When I attack, I don't let up anyway, so defense at that point is useless." Naruto was getting bored, however, and asked, "Is that all you got? Because if it is, you are about to lose in the next 5 seconds. Why you? I'll show you who will lose," shouted Sasuke as he rushed Naruto again. At that time Naruto started to count down from 5. When he reached 2, Sasuke was right in front of him. At 1, Naruto was suddenly behind Sasuke and placing his hand on Sasuke's back. Finally at 0, Sasuke flew out of the ring and landed in a heap against a tree. As a result, Sasuke lost the match and ended up second place. Overall in the class rank, Naruto himself gained Rookie of the Year despite not doing much in the fight and the fact that he wasn't in class until this day. Finally it was time for the Jutsu portion of the exam. This was the part that Naruto couldn't wait for. On the walk to Naruto's new house, Minato and Kushina told him to show one of each of their skills in order to show credence to the fact that he was their son. Naruto smirked at that and knew exactly what he would show the class. He decided to leave the fact that he could manipulate the Force a secret so any enemies he had would be surprised. The Force push he used on Sasuke could be explained by a very strong physical push since his hand did make contact with Sasuke's back at the time. The 3 jutsu that was required turned out to be the clone jutsu, the replacement jutsu, and the transformation jutsu. After that they were asked if they were going to show any other jutsu for extra credit. When it was Naruto's turn, he made the required hand sign and made 3 perfect clones of the normal variety. Thanks to the fox being fully absorbed into his system and the amount of control needed to use the Force, Naruto had perfect chakra control despite his massive reserves. After the clones disappeared, Naruto then proceeded to perform the other 2 jutsu perfectly as well. When Naruto was done with the basic jutsu, Iruka asked, "Are there any other jutsu you want to show for extra credit?" Naruto turned towards Iruka and said, "Yes, I would like to show 2 jutsu and will need 2 separate training logs." Iruka nodded and pointed to the set of 3 training posts at the edge of the field they were using. Naruto walked to the middle one and held his right hand in front of him where everyone could see it. A moment later a rapidly spinning ball of blue chakra could be seen formed in his palm. Naruto rammed the ball into the post while shouting, "Rasengan." The attack hit the post dead center and tore through it for a few seconds before Naruto let the attack disperse. When he did, a hole big enough for a bowling ball to fit into was shown in the wood. Naruto then walked to the left and stood about 2 feet in front of the leftmost post. With his right hand he called his left side lightsaber to said hand and ignited it, causing a green blade to emerge. The blade itself was 3 feet long with a 10-inch handle. Naruto held the blade in a reverse grip and formed a half-ram sign with his left hand. Ninja art. Sword of Shadows. As soon as those words left his mouth, Naruto appeared to shimmer for a moment before he turned his blade off and replaced it on his belt. The instant he let go of the handle, the left training post fell to pieces. If one looked closely they would see that the C-oot edges were blackened as if burned and a red outline surrounded the black edges. Iruka, as well as the rest of the class, stood there in awe at what this boy was capable of. Shino himself thought it was a good idea that he planned on making friends with the new guy. Sasuke just seethed and wished the power of this boy was his so he could kill his brother and avenge his clan. Shortly after Naruto showed his jutsu, Iruka led the class back inside and called up those who graduated. Most of the class graduated and received a leaf headband, including Naruto himself. Naruto tied his headband around his forehead where it belonged and took a seat to await further instructions. Congratulations to all those who graduated. Return here tomorrow at 11 am to receive team placements. Until then dismissed. Naruto then stood up and headed to the front of the academy to await Shino so that they could hang out and get to know each other and become friends. Naruto stood next to a tree outside the academy and waited for Shino to arrive. Not 2 minutes later said boy exited the academy and walked towards him. Thank you for meeting me. What would you like to do first? Asked Shino. Remembering his blaster problem, Naruto got an idea and asked Shino. Is there a place that sells precious gems? Shino thought before shaking his head and replying. Not in any actual store, no. But the bank will deal in trades for diamonds, emeralds, and rubies for the right price. Naruto responded with, that will do. Let's start with that, then we can eat and chat. Shino nodded and led Naruto to the bank. As soon as they entered, a bank manager ran up to Naruto and said, Mr. Namikaze, it's a pleasure to see you. Your account is of course available to you and the balance is 15 million ryo. Is there anything I can do for you? In response, Naruto reached into his pocket and produced 3 silver and 3 gold rectangles with a single bronze one thrown in for good measure. He handed the pile to the manager and said, 3 things. First, I want those converted and the total added to my account. Second, I would like a credit card made so I don't have to carry money around. And third, I want 1 diamond, 1 ruby, and 1 emerald the size of a human thumb. The manager nodded and replied, it will take 30 minutes to gather everything you need. Feel free to have a seat in the lobby. Naruto nodded and sat down with Shino next to him as the manager ran off to see to Naruto's needs. Half an hour the manager returned with an envelope and spoke. Here you are, Mr. Namikaze. Everything you asked for is inside. After the conversion of the bars you provided and the cost of the 3 gems, your new balance is 20 million ryo. Is there anything else you need? Naruto took the envelope and laced in inside his dark red tunic before speaking. No thank you, that will be all. Have a good day. Naruto and Shino then left the bank and proceeded to the restaurant that Shino knew of. As it turned out, the place was a barbecue joint that had you cook your own meat there at the table once you ordered. The two sat down at a table and placed an order for ribs and a steak each. Once the order has been placed, 3 other people walked in and spotted Shino with Naruto before walking over. The first was a girl with short black hair that had a blue tint to it and long bangs framing her face. He wore a tan short-sleeved jacket that showed off her well-endowed bust and black leggings. A pair of black ninja sandals occupied her feet. Her eyes though were what caught Naruto's attention. They were a soft lavender with no hint of pupil at all. Around her neck was her headband that held the leaf symbol. Next to her was a boy about a year older than her with similar eyes. He had long black hair tied off at the end and the leaf symbol headband around his forehead. He also wore a tan short-sleeved shirt, but his had straps running horizontal along the front. A pair of dark shorts covered his legs with ninja tape wrapped around one leg. He also wore black ninja sandals. The final person was a girl about she wore a pink battle shirt and blue pants and sandals. Her headband was also around her forehead. Her hair was brown and held in 2 small buns that resembled panda ears. The first girl was the first to speak. Hello, my name is Hinata Hyuga, this is my cousin Neji and his teammate Tenten. Do you mind if we join you? Naruto shook his head and offered them a seat while saying, not at all, the more the merrier. The 3 newcomers sat down and placed an order for themselves. 2 hours later the small group left the barbecue joint and started to walk around town. Suddenly Tenten spoke up. Hey Naruto, I heard from Hinata that you're pretty good with a sword. Would you mind having a spar with me? Naruto thought for a moment before shrugging and saying, sure, why not? With that the group headed towards a training ground. Once there Naruto used the force to call the left side lightsaber to his right hand. Once in hand he rotated a knob to the left until he heard a click. After a thought he called the right side lightsaber to his left hand and repeated the action. He then placed the left hand saber back where it belonged. He then ignited the remaining saber in his hand revealing the same green blade that he used during the graduation exam. He then turned towards Tenten and saw that she now had a basic katana in her hand. Naruto then took the time to explain. My swords are known as lightsabers and are very deadly at full strength. In fact at full strength, They can cut through just about anything like a hot knife through butter, including human limbs. I have turned both sabers down to what is known as training mode. In training mode they can still be deadly, but no more so than a regular sword. However, I must warn you that prolonged contact can still cut through metal. Tenten nodded and said, I understand. However, I still want to test your skills with a blade, regardless of what happens to my sword. Naruto nodded and the two of them charged at each other. They met in a blur of clashing blades before Naruto locked Tenten's blade with his own. A few seconds into the lock, Naruto saw that his lightsaber was slowly cutting through Tenten's blade. Tenten must have seen it as well, for she disengaged and jumped back to catch her breath. Mom! And later she leapt at him again while swinging with much greater force. Again the blades locked and Naruto's blade cut through Tenten's blade just a little more. This time it was Naruto who disengaged the lock, but instead of jumping back he just continued to swing at faster pace than Tenten could follow. With a final parry, Naruto used his blade to toss Tenten's from her hand. Unfortunately, Tenten's blade broke in two at that moment. Naruto saw this and tried to apologize, but Tenten cut him off. Don't worry about it, Naruto. As I said before, I understood what I was getting into. Besides, Hat was an old blade that I was planning on replacing soon anyway. At hearing this, Naruto got an idea. Very well. However, I must insist that I replace the blade myself, seeing how it was my fault that it was destroyed, he replied. Tenten nodded and the group decided to split up and go about their own business. Naruto said goodbye to the group that he now saw as his new friends before heading home. Once there, he took the envelope out of his tunic and opened it to reveal a credit card and the 3 gems he ordered. He walked into his bedroom and sat down on his bed with his legs crossed. He sat the credit card on his nightstand before setting all 3 gems on the bed in front of him. Closing his eyes, he reached out with the force and levitated the gems. After a few hours he opened his eyes to see that the gems had fused into one substance 6 inches long and cylindrical in shape. Using the force he broke the new substance into 3 equal pieces before setting 2 of them aside. He then pulled out his Naboo blaster and ejected the magazine before using the force to dismantle the entire thing. Once in pieces, he sat them next to the gem that he still held before picking up one of the remaining 2 gems. He then held this gem in his right hand and meditated for 1 hour while channeling chakra through the gem. After the hour was up, he opened his eyes and smiled at seeing a blue gem instead of the red that it was before. He then picked up the first still red gem and held it next to the new blue-colored gem. Using both the force and chakra, he fused them together before using the force to reassemble the blaster around the new gem. Once reassembled, Naruto channeled the force and pulled the trigger. A small red bolt shot out of the blaster and hit the wall, making a bolt-size hole in the plaster. He then sent chakra through the blaster while pulling the trigger. This time a blue ring shot out that expanded in size till it hit the wall as well. The wall remained undamaged and the ring was the size of a hula hoop when it hit. Naruto smiled in satisfaction, knowing that the ring would not get bigger than that no matter how far it traveled. He also knew that the blue ring was the stun ring that the blaster fired when set for stun. Now that the blaster ran on either chakra or the force, Naruto knew that he would never run out of ammo. On the plus side, anyone with chakra could fire the stun side of the blaster, while only Naruto would be able to fire the lethal side. Seeing that he still had a little bit of time, Naruto grabbed one of his lightsabers and sat it in front of him. He then pulled out a scroll from under his bed that he found there while exploring the house earlier in the day. He opened it to reveal it to be blank, which is what he wanted. Pulling out an ink and brush set, Naruto began to draw a special seal onto the scroll. An hour later, Naruto finished the seal and placed his lightsaber on top of it. Channeling chakra into the seal caused a puff of smoke before an identical lightsaber appeared. Well, it was almost identical. The difference was that the one that appeared did not have a power crystal and therefore did not work. The seal he used was a special seal that duplicated any item placed on it down to the last detail. The duplicated item was a permanent copy with all the strengths and weaknesses of the original. However, the seal used took an hour to draw and used a lot of chakra to use. It also had the downside that it could only make a single copy of the item used, and once the copy was made, the seal could not be used again. and would need to be redrawn before a new item could be duplicated. Therefore the seal was not used very often. However, it was perfect for what Naruto had planned. The reason why the duplicate lightsaber did not have a power crystal was because the crystal needs to be infused with the force in order to make the weapon work. The seal used to duplicate the lightsaber couldn't duplicate force-infused items no matter how much chakra was used. Not that Naruto was worried about it that much. Picking up the duplicate, Naruto inserted the remaining gem into the power crystal slot before closing the weapon up. Knowing that the duplicated saber was set to training mode since that was the mode the original was set to, Naruto activated the blade. A red blade just like Naruto's first lightsaber emerged from the emitter. Frowning, Naruto concentrated on the force and changed the color of the blade to blue. Once the change was complete, Naruto shut off the blade and set it aside. He knew that changing the color of the blade also made the crystal change to blue as well to match the blade's color. He also knew that since the new saber was a duplicate of the one he used down to the last detail and that the one he used was set to training mode, the new one would always be in training mode since it did not have a full power mode. Seeing that it was getting late, Naruto decided to get ready for bed. He set an early alarm for the next day so that he could hopefully find Tenten and give her new sword before attending the team placements. Naruto awoke the next morning at 9 am and proceeded to get ready for the day. Once dressed in his usual outfit with his lightsabers and updated blossed up the spare lightsaber he duplicated last night and exited his house. Not knowing where Tenten lived, Naruto decided to just walk towards the academy. He was in luck as he spotted said girl walking towards a nearby training ground. Running up to her he said, "Hey Tenten, wait up." Tenten looked up and spotted Naruto and waited for him. Once he was within earshot she said, "Good morning Naruto. What brings you here this early in the morning?" In response, Naruto handed her the duplicated lightsaber and said, "I wanted to give this to you before I went to team placements. I used a special seal last night and duplicated one of mine. Yours is almost an exact copy, the only difference is being the blade color and the fact that yours can only function in training mode. However, if used properly it could still be deadly." Tenten took the lightsaber and activated it, admiring the blue blade. After giving it a couple practice swings she sealed it into a scroll that Naruto just realized she had swung across her back. She thanked him and the two decided to go eat breakfast somewhere before Naruto had to go to team placements. Arriving at the academy, Naruto saw that he was the last to show up other than the teacher. 2 minutes after Naruto sat down, Iruka walked in with a stack of papers in his hand. "All right class, listen up. I have here the team placements that I will now begin to read off. However, before I do I would like to say that Naruto Namikaze's placement will be mentioned last," said Iruka. With that he began to list the teams. The boy, Sasuke, who Naruto beat at the graduation sparring match, was placed on Team 7 along with a pink-haired girl named Sakura Haruno and another boy named Sai. Their sensei was a man named Kakashi. Team 8 consisted of Naruto's friends Shino and Hinata along with a boy named Kiba who had a small dog with him. A woman named Kurenai was their sensei. Team 9 was still in circulation, so Team 10 was Shikamaru Nara, Choji Akamaiki and Ino Yamanaka. Asuma Sarutobi was their sensei. Finally, Naruto's name was called. Team 11 will be a little different and will consist of Naruto Namikaze at this time. His sensei will be Yugao Azuki. At this time there are no other people to join Team 11 as all other current teams are full and active. This may change in the future though. Now please wait quietly until your sensei arrives," said Iruka before gathering his papers and walking out the door. 3 minutes later a woman with long purple hair, black eyes and red lipstick walked in the room. She wore the outfit usually worn by the Anbu, which made Naruto raise an eyebrow. "Naruto Namikaze, please come with me," she said before walking out the door once more. Naruto stood up and followed the woman out of the academy and to a training ground on the other side of the village. Once there the woman turned to Naruto and spoke. "My name is Yugao Azuki and I will be your sensei until you become a Jonin. That is if you pass my test. I asked for you personally because I read the notes about your graduation test on your ability with a sword. I knew your mother and was briefly trained by her before I was recruited to the Anbu. If you have half the skills that she had with a sword, then this will be a wonderful team." Now for my test. I am going to attack you with my sword. Your job is to defend yourself for 5 minutes straight. If you get cut within that time you fail and I will return to the Anbu. If you can last for 5 minutes you pass. Any questions? What if my sword injures you within that time? Asked Naruto. Yugao smiled and said, I doubt that will happen, but if it does you get an automatic pass. Naruto nodded and feeling cocky, used the force to summon his right side lightsaber to his left hand before activating it, revealing a red blade. I haven't used this one in a long time. I prefer to fight right-handed. But I'm no slouch with my off-hand either, said Naruto. Yugao smirked and drew her sword before charging Naruto at full speed. For his part, Naruto just barely brought his lightsaber up in time to block the attack. They proceeded to trade blows until the 3-minute mark when Naruto got behind Yugao and landed a slash across her back. Since his blade was in training mode, it only left a slight burr. Mark where it traveled compared to cutting her in half like it could in full power mode. Yugao grunted in pain before turning towards Naruto and sheathing her sword. Congratulations, you passed the test. Meet here tomorrow morning at 9 am and we will begin both training and missions. Dismissed. With that, Yugao turned and walked away, leaving Naruto to his own devices for the remainder of the day. The end. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.